The mop water was already the color of weak coffee when Jack Rivera pushed it across the hallway floor. The air inside Cedar Ridge High held that familiar mix of things that did not quite belong together: floor wax, teenage sweat, cheap perfume, old books. Outside, beyond the double doors, an early Texas summer pressed against the glass, bright and white and hot. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed softly over linoleum scuffed by thousands of sneakers. Jack dipped the mop, wrung it out, and cut a slow line through a smear of dried soda. The stain loosened, turned cloudy, then disappeared into the gray water. He watched it vanish for half a second longer than he needed to, then moved on. At his hip, his keyring rattled with every step. Dozens of keys, all shapes and sizes, rode on a single heavy loop that had worn a permanent groove into his belt. Classroom keys, storage closet keys, boiler room keys. Some were shiny and new, some had teeth worn smooth from use. He knew everyone by feel. He stopped to straighten a crooked poster taped to the wall. It showed last year's graduating class, lined up in maroon caps and gowns on the football field. In the far corner of the photo, almost out of frame, a man in a green custodial polo stood half behind a speaker, holding a trash bag. The photo blur made him almost unrecognizable. Jack let his fingers rest on that corner, then pulled his hand back and smoothed the tape. From the gym down the hall came a dull rumble of voices and movement. Students were rehearsing for this year's ceremony. Somebody yelled, somebody laughed, a chair scraped. A whistle blew sharp and impatient. The sound echoed through the empty hallway where Jack worked hollow and distant. He moved on, clearing stray paper cups and candy wrappers into the trash bag that hung from the cart. A wrapper stuck to the floor, glued down by something sticky. He peeled it up. The smear beneath smelled faintly of orange and sugar. His knees popped as he squatted to scrub. "Stubborn, huh?" he muttered, more to the stain than to anyone else. The pad rasped against the tile. The stain gave little by little until only a faint shadow remained. He rinsed the pad in the bucket, watching the swirl of cloudy water settle. The walkie clip to his collar crackled. "Rivera, you still in the East Hall?" Assistant Principal Macklin's voice had the flat tone of someone who had not learned to say please in years. Jack pressed the button. "Yes, sir, just finishing up. Gym bathrooms are a mess. Kids tracking dirt all over. Hit those before you clock out." "On it," Jack said. He set the mop back in the rolling caddy and pushed the cart toward the gym keys singing at his side. As he passed the trophy case, rows of gold-plated plastic athletes gleamed under the dim light. Football, basketball, track. Team photos in their frames, kids grinning under helmets, coaches with clipboards. At the bottom sat a dusty framed article from the local paper about Cedar Ridge honoring veterans at graduation. He was not in that picture. He had been in the back of the crowd that day holding a broom. He kept walking. The gym doors were propped open with a pair of rolled-up mats. Inside, the bleachers creaked under the weight of students practicing how to walk in a straight line. The principal stood on the stage in shirt sleeves, waving his arms, trying to herd them into something resembling order. "Remember, this is a dignified ceremony," he called out. "Eyes forward, no phones, tassels on the right, until I say." A group of seniors in maroon gowns loitered near the bleachers, fiddling with their caps. Jack caught a flash of familiar dark hair, a profile. Lily. His daughter stood with a cluster of friends, gown half-zipped, hands moving quick as she talked. Emma sat on the bottom step of the bleachers, earbuds and notebook balanced on her knees. Same face, same eyes, different way of carrying themselves. Jack slowed, instinctively staying in the shadow of the doorway where the light from the hall did not quite reach. It was not that he needed to hide. Habits just had a way of settling into his bones. Lily laughed at something a friend said. The sound carried over the squeak of sneakers and the murmur of the crowd. Jack felt the laugh in his chest. He did not call out. He knew them well enough to know when to keep his distance. "Custodial," Macklin snapped from somewhere behind him. "Bathrooms, now!" Jack nodded without turning around and angled toward the side hallway that led to the locker rooms. The gym floor under his boots was smooth slick in places where the polish had not fully dried. The smell of sweat and cheap body spray intensified near the locker rooms. The boys' bathroom beside the gym looked like a small storm had passed through. Muddy footprints, paper towels on the floor, a trail of something that might have been sports drink down the wall. Jack snapped on a pair of gloves and pulled out the spray bottle. The work settled into his muscles, familiar and simple. Spray, scrub, wipe, repeat. Stains lifted, disappeared, returned as faint ghosts, then faded with another swipe. The hiss of the spray bottle and the low squeak of the rag filled the space between occasional shouts from the gym. Under the fluorescent lights, the scars on the backs of his hands stood out pale against his tan. Long ropey lines across the knuckles, a crescent near his thumb, a smaller puckered mark near his wrist where the veins jumped. Years ago, those same hands had gripped a rifle shoved aside. Debris hauled more weight than they should have. Now they scrubbed tile. He finished the sinks, then moved on to the stalls. Someone had drawn a crude crown in black marker on the inside of one door and written, "Class of Kings." Jack shook his head but did not bother with it yet. Marker came off with a different chemical and a different kind of effort. The stain could wait one more day. When the bathrooms were as clean as they were going to get, he stripped off the gloves and checked the time on the cheap watch around his wrist. Almost 4. Lily and Emma would be home by now. He guided the cart back through the hall, stopping to flip off lights as he passed. Darkness followed him in sections, swallowing lockers and posters, the buildings of the school disappearing into shadow piece by piece until only the emergency exit signs still glowed red. In the custodial room near the back of the school, he parked the cart in its corner. The room smelled like bleach oil and old coffee. A metal locker with his name stenciled on it leaned slightly to one side. He opened it. Inside, a denim jacket hung next to a spare uniform. A lunchbox sat on the shelf empty. On the back wall of the locker, tucked into the frame, an old photograph was taped in place. 2 girls, maybe 5 years old, sat in a plastic kiddie pool, holding cheap water pistols, grinning rainbow popsicle stains across their faces. He smiled at it without thinking. On the narrow shelf below lay a small metal tin. Jack hesitated, then slid it toward him and popped the lid. The challenge coin caught the light, even in the dim room. The metal was worn smooth at the edges from fingers that had turned it over and over years ago. One side held an engraved emblem, a black bird wings half spread perched above the number 17. The other side read in small letters, "Bring them home." Jack turned it between thumb and forefinger, feeling the familiar weight, then closed it back into the tin. The coin went in first. The tin went to the back of the shelf. His folded work gloves went on top. He took off his gloves from today and tucked them in alongside. Then he grabbed his denim jacket and shrugged it on over the green polo. The keys stayed at his hip. They always did. He clocked out using the old punch clock on the wall. The card slid in the machine, stamped a time in red ink. There was a certain comfort in the hard little click it made. Outside, the late afternoon heat wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. The sun sat low, turning the tops of the bleachers gold. A few kids lingered near the parking lot, trading jokes, car doors slamming, engines starting. Someone blasted music from a dented pickup. Jack's truck sat at the far end of the lot, a faded blue Ford with a missing hubcap and a cracked tail light. He unlocked it, the keys clinking, and slid behind the wheel. The seat springs complained. The steering wheel was hot under his palms. He took one last look at the school in the rearview mirror before turning the key. The building loomed against the pale sky brick and glass and steel banners flapping loose along the fence. The words printed on the biggest one along the fence line fluttered open for a moment in the wind. No one left behind. Jack watched the banner settle, then pulled out of the lot and headed toward home. The road home ran straight for a while, then curved past a strip mall and a cluster of small houses with tired lawns. Jack drove with the window cracked, letting in a thin, hot breeze that smelled of asphalt and cut grass. The radio stayed off. He liked the quiet after the buzz of the school. At a red light, he rested his wrist on the top of the steering wheel. A streak of sun caught the faint outline of ink beneath his cuff. A black wing, the hint of a talon, the curve of a number. He tugged the sleeve down without thinking and focused on the traffic. By the time he turned into his street, the heat had begun to sink towards something softer. Shadows stretched long across front yards. A dog barked 3 houses down. Somewhere someone was grilling, the smell of charcoal and meat drifting through the neighborhood. The Rivera house sat near the end of the block, a single story with peeling white trim and a front porch that leaned a little to one side. The yard was mostly dirt with a stubborn patch of grass near the mailbox. A cracked concrete angel watched over a row of potted plants that Emma tended when she remembered. Jack pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. For a moment, he sat there, hands resting on the wheel, watching the movement in the front windows. A shape passed, a curtain twitched. The porch light was not on yet. They were home. He grabbed his lunchbox and stepped out. The keys chimed at his hip as he climbed the 2 porch steps. The front door stuck a little in the frame as always. He leaned his shoulder into it and went inside. Cooler air greeted him, chased by the faint smell of tomato sauce and something baking. The television murmured in the living room, a game show host laughing at his own joke. A fan turned lazily in the ceiling. "Hey, it is the working man," Lily called from the kitchen. Jack set his lunchbox on the small table by the door and toed off his boots. "You say that like it is a rare thing." "In this house, it is," she said. She appeared in the doorway, hair pulled into a messy bun, bare feet, an apron tied over her t-shirt and shorts. A smear of red dotted her arm where she must have bumped the pot. "Smells good," Jack said. "What are we having, Chef Rivera?" "Spaghetti. Garlic bread if I do not burn it again." Lily wiped her arm with the back of her wrist. "Emma is on salad duty, which means we are probably just having lettuce in a bowl." "I heard that," Emma said from the kitchen. Her voice was softer, but it carried. "And there are tomatoes." Jack walked into the kitchen. It was small, crowded by the three of them cabinets chipped along the edge's countertop, scarred by heat rings and knife marks. A pot simmered on the stove, steam fogging the nearby window. Emma stood at the counter, carefully slicing a tomato into thin wedges, her dark hair falling forward until she hooked it back with one finger. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "Hey," she replied without looking up. A hint of a smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. He washed his hands in the sink, the water running warm, the soap smelling faintly of fake lemons. As he dried them on the towel, his eyes slid to the calendar pinned to the wall. A date circled in red. Tomorrow. Underneath, Lily had written in block letters, "Grad" with 3 exclamation marks. "Big day," he said, more to fill the air than anything. "Yeah," Lily answered. "You ready to cry, old man?" "I do not cry," Jack said. "I leak, very rugged." She rolled her eyes, but her laugh came easy. She turned back to the oven, checking the bread, letting the door slam shut with a small thud. Emma glanced at the calendar, then at him. For a second, their eyes met. Something flickered there quick. Then she dropped her gaze to the cutting board. They ate at the small table in the living room, because the kitchen had no space for a proper dining table. Plates balanced on placemats that had seen better days. A glass of water beside each plate. The television stayed on, but muted bright images flashing silently in the background. Jack twirled spaghetti on his fork and took a bite. The sauce tasted more like canned tomatoes than anything else, but it was warm, and the bread was only a little burned at the edges. "This is good," he said. "Do not sound so surprised," Lily said. "I am never surprised when you do something well," he replied. "Just when you do not burn the bread." Emma smiled into her glass. They talked about trivial things at first. A teacher who had mispronounced names during rehearsal, a classmate who had tripped on the stage steps. The way the gowns made everyone look like they were drowning in fabric. Jack listened, asked questions, laughed in the right places. It felt like any other evening, which was probably why the shift in Lily's tone stood out when she finally cleared her throat. "So," she said, pushing a piece of bread around her plate, "about tomorrow." Jack stabbed another forkful of pasta, though he was not hungry anymore. "What about it? I have the day circled on my mental calendar." Lily folded her napkin, unfolded it, folded it again. Emma watched her, then set her own fork down, hands folding in her lap. "There is a parents' section," Lily said, "on the field, for photos and stuff." "Sounds fancy," Jack said. "Do I need to rent a tux?" She gave him a look that was half amused, half uncomfortable. "You do not own a suit, Dad." "I own a tie, somewhere, maybe." Emma picked at a crumb on the table. The fan above them clicked faintly with each rotation. "I was thinking," Lily went on, "maybe you could, I do not know, stand kind of in the back. Not right up in the middle with all the parents. Just like where you can still see us, but you are not, in all the pictures." The words hung there, not fully landing, as if they were waiting for permission to sink in. Jack set his fork down gently. He did not look at her right away. He watched the condensation slide down the side of his water glass, forming a small puddle on the table. "In the back," he said. "Just because there will be a lot of cameras," Lily said quickly, "and people get weird about staff being in the shots and stuff. Remember how that mom complained last year, Mrs. Caldwell? She flipped out because the janitor was in the background of her kid's photo. I do not want anyone giving you a hard time. Or us. I mean, it is just a photo. It is stupid." Her words started to trip over each other, speeding up. Emma shifted in her chair. "It is not that we are ashamed," Emma said softly. Her voice almost got lost under Lily's. "Just people can be, judgmental." Jack looked at both of them now. Lily's cheeks had flushed pink. Emma's eyes were fixed on the tablecloth, her fingers pressed together so hard the knuckles were pale. He felt something in his chest tighten, then loosen. He had spent years learning the shape of their fear. It was never just about him. "Back row is fine," he said. His voice came out steady. "I get a better view from there anyway. less tall dads blocking the sight line. Lily let out a breath that he had not realized she was holding. "Really? You are not mad." "Why would I be mad?" he said. "It is your day. I am just there for the free program and the chance to clap loudly at the wrong time." A small laugh broke out of her. Emma looked up relief, and something like guilt chasing each other across her face. "I will get there early," Jack added. "Find a good spot. You will hear me cheering even if you do not see me." Lily rose and circled the table, leaning down to wrap her arms around his shoulders. Her hair smelled like shampoo and garlic. "You are the best," she said into his ear. He patted her arm. "Do not say that too loud. The dog down the street will get jealous." Later, as they rinsed dishes in the sink, Lily humming under her breath and Emma stacking plates in the rack, with precise care, Jack leaned back against the counter and watched them move around each other. They knew where the other would reach before it happened. Years of practice in a small space. "You two have what you need for tomorrow?" he asked. "Caps, gowns, those string things." "Tassels," Emma said. "Yes." "Honors cords," Lily said. "Also yes. You are sure you do not want to iron your shirt at least?" "My shirt has character," he said, "like its owner." "Your shirt has wrinkles," Lily replied. "It has lived a life." Emma dried her hands and wiped a spot on the counter that was already clean. "Our counselor said parents should be on the field by 9, she said. "Ceremony starts at 10. "I will be there," Jack said. "Back row, remember, like a shadow." She flinched slightly at the word, then smiled to cover it. "Yeah," she said, "like a shadow." The next morning, the halls of Cedar Ridge felt different. The building hummed with a nervous, buzzing energy. Seniors in half-zipped gowns hurried past mortarboards tucked under their arms. Teachers carried stacks of programs and clipboards. The janitorial cart still rolled over the same floors, but the air around it felt charged. Jack had come in early uniform, already damp at the collar from the humidity. Confetti from some unofficial celebration the night before littered the front entry. He swept it into tidy piles, the dustpan scraping lightly. As he bent to empty the pan into a trash bag, he heard shoes approach and stop nearby. The sound was heavier than student sneakers. He straightened and found Mr. Harris watching him. The history teacher leaned on the doorframe, tie slightly crooked coffee mug in one hand. Deep lines framed his eyes, which were sharper than his mild expression usually suggested. "Morning, Jack," he said. "Morning, Mr. Harris. You ready for the big show?" Harris nodded toward the gym, where a crew was setting up a row of folding chairs. "I am just here for the cleanup," Jack said. "The glory belongs to the young." Harris took a sip of coffee, then set the mug on the nearby ledge. His gaze dropped to Jack's hands. Jack was rolling up his sleeves against the heat. The scars along his wrist and forearm were fully visible now, pale lines crossing the darker skin. "Those look like more than just a run-in with a broken locker," Harris said. Jack paused, sleeve halfway rolled. For a second, the hallway sound dimmed. Then he finished the roll and reached for another wad of confetti. "Occupational hazards," he said, "a lifetime ago." "Army?" Harris asked. The question was gentle, almost casual. Jack held the dustpan a little tighter. "Something like that." Harris studied his face a moment longer, then nodded once. "Well," he said, reaching for his coffee again, "if you ever want to talk about old hazards, my room's the one with too many maps and not enough windows." He lifted the mug in a small salute and walked away, whistling a tune Jack did not recognize. Jack watched him go, then tipped the confetti into the trash. The tiny scraps of colored paper slid into the black plastic, bright pieces disappearing into darkness. He tied the bag, closed the plastic stretching, then carried it toward the back keys, chiming softly at his side. By mid-morning, the heat had settled over the neighborhood like a lid. Inside the house, ceiling fans turned, and the air smelled of hairspray and fabric softener. Lily stood in front of the mirror, on the closet door, holding her maroon gown against her body. The polyester clung to her bare legs with a faint crackle. Her cap sat crooked on her bed tassel, already tangled. "This thing is so ugly," she said, "like impressively ugly." Emma sat cross-legged on her own bed, folding and refolding the pale gold honor cord that would go around her neck. "It is tradition," she said. "You are supposed to look like a walking curtain." The bedroom they shared was small, 2 twin beds pushed against opposite walls, posters and photo strips, filling every spare patch of paint. A string of fairy lights sagged between thumbtacks. The dresser drawers did not close completely. On the floor, a pair of sneakers lay on their sides, open mouths waiting for feet. A honk sounded from outside, 2 quick beeps. Lily went to the window and peeked through the blinds. A sky-blue Civic sat at the curb, music humming faintly behind closed doors. Chloe leaned out the driver's side window, waving. Chloe is here, Lily said. She is early. That is new, Emma said. Lily shouted toward the front of the house. Come in, it is open! A moment later, the front door squeaked and closed. Chloe clattered down the hallway in sandals, then appeared in the bedroom doorway without knocking. Graduates, she announced, I bring congratulations and zero emotional stability. She wore ripped jeans and a black tank top that said seniors in cracked white letters. Her hair, usually up in a messy knot, was straightened and glossy. Wow, Lily said. You look like you belong in a shampoo commercial. Do not get used to it, Chloe said. My arms are sore from holding the flat iron. She stepped into the room and spun once, then flopped onto Emma's bed, making the mattress dip. The honor cord slid into Emma's lap. You guys look serious, Chloe said. What happened? You find out finals actually count? Lily held the gown up to her throat and made a face in the mirror. Just trying to figure out how to not look like a burrito. You will be the cutest burrito there, Chloe said. She sat up. Okay, hair triage. Who needs what? Can you fix my bangs? Lily asked. They keep doing this weird swoopy thing. On it, Chloe said, hopping off the bed. Where is your good clip, the silver one, the one that does not try to murder your scalp? In Dad's room, probably, Lily said. He stole it last week to fix something and never brought it back. Chloe blinked. He used a hair clip as a tool. Do not ask, Emma said. Chloe shrugged. All right, I will go hunt it down. She padded down the hall toward Jack's room. The door was mostly closed, pulled in until only a thin strip of light showed along the jamb. She pushed it open with the back of her hand. The room smelled faintly of soap and old coffee. The blinds were half drawn, throwing lines of shadow across the unmade bed. A pair of work boots sat neatly side by side near the wall. A denim jacket hung on the back of a chair, next to a small desk, cluttered with bills, a chipped mug, and a couple of pens that had leaked onto a napkin. Chloe checked the top of the dresser first. Old receipts, loose change, a folded pocket knife. No clip. She opened the top drawer. Socks and worn t-shirts all folded to the same tight rectangles. The second drawer held jeans and work pants. Still nothing. She crossed to the small closet and slid the door open. Inside hung Jack's uniforms, the same green shirts and dark pants lined up like copies. On the shelf above lay a row of shoeboxes and a plastic tub filled with odds and ends. Okay, mystery box, she said under her breath. She reached up and dragged one of the shoeboxes forward. It caught on something and tipped, spilling a stack of old stuff onto the floor. Socks, a belt with a broken buckle, a battered baseball cap, a small envelope, and a photograph that fluttered down like a slow leaf. Chloe bent to pick up the photo. The paper was thick, slightly curled at the corners, the colors faded. A younger version of Jack looked back at her from the picture. He was in full combat gear helmet on chin strap loose. His face was thinner, jaw harder, eyes a shade colder. Dust streaked his cheek. Behind him, painted on a wall or the side of a vehicle, a black bird spread wide wings above the number 17. Whoa, Chloe whispered. She turned and hurried back down the hall, photo pinched between her fingers. Invasion, she announced as she stepped back into the girls' room. Also, what is this? Lily looked up from the mirror. Emma set the cord aside. Chloe held out the photo. Lily took it, frown lines forming on her forehead. Is that Dad? Emma scooted closer, eyes narrowing. He looks younger. And scary, Chloe added, like someone who does not get your jokes. In the picture, Jack's gaze was off to the side as if he were looking at something just out of frame. The logo behind him, the bird and the number, drew the eye. The image carried a different feeling than the usual family photos on the walls. Those were all smiles and birthdays and crooked Christmas trees. This one smelled even through faded ink of dust and heat, and something heavier. Lily turned the photo over. On the back, in blocky handwriting that matched the notes he sometimes left on the fridge, someone had written 2 words and a date. Helmand 07. Below that, in smaller letters, another hand had added Ghost 17. Emma traced the words with her thumb. Helmand is in Afghanistan, she said. How do you know that? Chloe asked. Mr. Harris, Emma said. He made us label maps for like 3 weeks. Chloe squinted at the front again. Ghost 17? That sounds like a metal band. Or a unit name, Emma said. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, photo between her hands. Why have we never seen this before? He does not really talk about that stuff, Chloe said. He does not talk about it at all, Emma corrected. Lily stared at their father's younger face. There was a distance in the eyes she did not recognize, like he had been somewhere far even while the photo was taken. She slid the picture onto the bed and reached for her phone. I am looking it up. She typed Ghost 17 military into the search bar and tapped the screen with more force than necessary. Results bloomed. The top was a cluster of unrelated things. A video game channel, a ghost hunting group, a fan forum for a science fiction show. "Try adding Marines," Emma said. Lily did. This time, a few different links appeared. A poorly formatted blog with a black background and white text. A discussion thread on a veterans forum. None of it was official. No Wikipedia page, no news articles. She tapped the blog. The header image was a grainy photo of soldiers silhouetted against a sunset. Text scrolled under it. Some say there was a unit that never showed up on the rosters the latest post began. They went where it was worst and left nothing but rumors behind. Lily skimmed. Words like extraction black site off the books blinked past. Emma leaned over her shoulder. "Scroll," she said. There was a section of comments, each tagged with a username and a date. "Guy from Coast. My uncle swears he saw a patch with a black bird and 17 on a guy who pulled him out of a road crater. Says the guy disappeared before the medevac even landed. Old Corbe 4, you do not talk about that stuff on open boards. Just be glad someone showed up." Underneath, an anonymous guest had written, "If Ghost 17 was there, you were not meant to die that day." Chloe hugged a pillow to her chest. "That is creepy," she said. "In a cool way. Your dad was like special ops or something." "He never said," Lily murmured. "He said he worked on bases," Emma said. "Like logistics, fixing things. He always made it sound boring." Lily scrolled further, but there was nothing solid. Just stories that sounded like campfire tales, names half redacted, places blurred. She set the phone down slowly. The room felt different, as if the floor had shifted a fraction of an inch, and her balance had not yet caught up. "We told him to stand in the back," she said quietly. Emma picked up the photo again, this time more carefully. "We did not know," she said. "But we do not know anything," Lily said. "We do not know who he was. We do not know what he did. We just know he mops floors and fixes leaky sinks and drives an old truck that smells like French fries." Chloe looked between them, sensing the change. Her usual jokes stayed where they were. "Did he leave already?" Emma asked. Lily glanced at the digital clock on the nightstand. 8:27. "He said he had to go in early," she said. "For setup." Emma stood and smoothed the edges of the photograph with her fingers. "I want to ask him," she said. Lily chewed her lower lip. "Yeah," she said. "Me too." They stepped out of the room, Chloe trailing behind. The house felt quieter than before, the television off the fan in the living room, the only sound. On the kitchen table next to a half-empty mug of coffee sat a folded note. 2 small bouquets lay beside it, wrapped in newsprint and tied with twine. The flowers were not fancy, just supermarket carnations and a few sprigs of baby's breath. Lily reached for the note. His handwriting was clear, a little crooked where the pen had caught. "Left early to help with the field. See you on the big stage. Proud of you, Dad." Below that, he had drawn 2 stick figures in caps and gowns, one slightly taller than the other. Emma picked up one of the bouquets. Ink from the newspaper had smudged onto the white petals, giving them a gray tint at the edges. The paper crackled in her hand. "He did not have to do that," Chloe said softly. Lily swallowed her throat tight. "They are like the cheapest flowers," she said, but there was no bite in her voice. "Yeah," Emma said. "He bought them anyway." She looked at the photo still in her other hand. Young Jack, dust on his face, darkness behind his eye. Somewhere between that version of him and the one who left bouquets on the table and circled dates on the calendar, a whole story sat untold. Emma slid the photo carefully into the front pocket of her bag. Lily took the other bouquet, holding it with a care that surprised even her. She could smell faint greenery and ink and a trace of the coffee that had sat nearby. "We should get going," Chloe said. "Traffic is going to be insane." "Yeah," Lily said. They moved through the familiar motions of gathering bags and keys, straightening gowns, checking for tickets and phones. Outside, the sun had climbed higher, baking the driveway. The air shimmered above the hood of the Civic. As they locked the front door, the keys clinked together in Lily's hand, the sound oddly similar to the chime that followed their father everywhere he went. Emma glanced back once at the table through the window, at the 2 bouquets and the empty mug, then turned and followed her sister down the steps. The traffic around Cedar Ridge High crawled. Cars inched along the street, turning into the packed parking lots in slow waves. Heat shimmered above hoods. Parents in pressed shirts and summer dresses stepped out, balancing bouquets, balloons, and camera bags. Chloe eased her Civic into a spot along the curb 2 blocks away. The dashboard read 9:03. She cut the engine and sat for a second, fingers drumming the steering wheel. "We walk from here," she said, "unless you want me to attempt parallel parking war." "I would rather graduate," Emma said. They climbed out, the air hitting them like an open oven. The maroon gowns were slung over their arms, caps in hand. Lily had twisted her hair back with the silver clip Chloe had eventually found wedged behind Jack's dresser. Strands already began to curl in the humidity. They joined a stream of seniors and families moving toward the school. The crowd flowed past the front doors, down the side of the building, and around to the football field. Posters with Joe Class of 25 and hand-painted signs waved above heads. Somewhere a band tuned instruments, brass notes drifting in broken pieces. Near the gate to the field school, staff checked names off lists. A sign pointed parents toward the bleachers and seniors toward a roped-off section near the field house. "Okay," Chloe said, stopping where the path split. "You two proceed to greatness. I will go wrangle seats and fight off random uncles with giant umbrellas." Lily adjusted the strap of her crossbody bag. The bouquet in her hand crackled. "You are sure you can find my dad if he texts you?" Back row loud clapping. "I will keep an eye out," Chloe said. She squeezed Lily's arm once and bumped her shoulder against Emma's. "See you on the other side, valedictorians of my heart." "We are not valedictorians," Emma said. "In my narrative, you are," Chloe replied, then spun away toward the bleachers. Lily and Emma stepped into the seniors' line. A teacher handed them programs with their names printed in neat lists. The field smelled like cut grass and hot plastic from the folding chairs that had been set up in long, straight rows. The metal bleachers already reflected sunlight like a mirror. Parents fanned themselves with hats and paper programs. Down on the field, staff bustled. The principal moved between the stage and the sound system, clipboard in hand. The assistant principal checked row numbers, barking instructions at volunteers. Jack was not among the parents. He was on the far side of the campus in the cafeteria. An hour earlier, someone had tipped over a tub of orange juice near the lunch line. The spill reached under tables, pooling in sticky puddles that clung to shoe soles. The smell of citrus hung heavy in the air. Jack slid his mop back and forth, pushing the liquid toward the drain. The fluorescent lights hummed. Outside, muted through the walls, he could hear the first waves of cars arriving. "Rivera," Macklin said from the doorway. "You still on that?" "Almost done," Jack said. "Make sure the back hallway is clear too. Board members are coming through there. I do not want them wading through mess. And remember, once guests arrive, keep staff out of the main photo areas." Jack wrung out the mop. "Understood." Macklin lingered a moment, his gaze flicking to the clock. "You got family here today, right?" "My girls," Jack said. "Lily and Emma." Macklin nodded once. "Good. Just do me a favor. When you are off the clock, try to stay out of the aisles. Some parents get particular about backgrounds." Jack could feel the old banner image in the trophy case, the edge of his own figure almost cut out. He stared at the mop handle. "I will find a corner," he said. When the last streak of orange juice was gone and the floor dried to a dull shine, he wheeled the cart back to the custodial room. The clock on the wall read 9:20. The ceremony started at 10. His shift technically ended at 9:30, but days like this blurred the lines. He opened his locker and took out a plastic grocery bag. Inside lay the 2 bouquets he had bought the day before, wrapped in the same newsprint as the ones on the kitchen table. These had fared a little better in the school fridge. The petals still held most of their color. He hesitated, then pulled off his green cap and ran a hand through his hair. The uniform shirt had a faint ring of darker fabric at the collar. He had planned to change into a clean shirt. He kept folded on the top shelf, but his fingers brushed the extra cloth only long enough to feel its coolness. The punch clock ticked. Somewhere a microphone squealed as someone tested it. He took the clean shirt down, looked at it, then folded it back into place. "Later," he said quietly. He clipped his keys back to his belt, grabbed the bag with the flowers, and stepped out into the bright corridor. Outside, the field was nearly full. The bleachers on the home side were a patchwork of colors, parents leaning toward each other, raising phones and cameras, shielding their eyes against the sun. Banners hung from the railings. The stage sat at the 50-yard line, a wooden podium at center, and a long table with stacks of diplomas to one side. Jack stayed close to the outer fence, away from the main entrance, where most families funneled in. He passed the back of the bleachers and came around to the far corner of the field. From there, he could see the stage at an angle. It was not the best view, but it was clear enough. He chose a spot near a tree where a slice of shade cut across the grass. It was just beyond the row of chairs labeled "Parents" in block letters. He did not step into the roped-off section. He leaned on the trunk, the bark rough at his back, and held the grocery bag against his leg. On the field, seniors took their seats as the band played a slightly wobbly march. From where he stood, Jack could see the top of Lily's dark hair and the tilt of Emma's head as she looked up at the stands, scanning for faces. He raised a hand, though he knew she could not see him from there. A murmur ran through the crowd as the principal stepped up to the podium. He tapped the microphone, winced at the feedback, then smiled into the sea of faces. "Good morning, Cedar Ridge," he began. "To the class of 25, to our families, our staff, our honored guests. Thank you for joining us to celebrate this milestone." The usual phrases followed: journey, hard work, new chapters. The words washed over Jack, familiar and distant. He focused on the shape of his daughter's shoulders. The way Lily sat up straighter when the principal mentioned scholarship winners. The way Emma twisted the ring on her finger when he talked about the future. And today, the principal said, "We are especially honored to welcome a guest who embodies service and commitment. Please join me in welcoming Captain Ryan Cole of the United States Marine Corps." Applause rippled across the stands. A man in dress blues rose from the front row of the reserved section and walked up the small steps to the stage. From the back corner, Jack watched him with the same quiet attention he gave any stranger in uniform. It was a habit he had never quite unlearned. Captain Cole looked to be in his mid-30s. His hair was cropped close, the lines of his jaw clean. The dark coat of his uniform sat perfectly on his shoulders, rows of ribbons above his pocket. When he reached the podium, he saluted the flag, then turned to the crowd. "Morning," he said, voice steady through the speakers. "I will keep this short because I know none of you remember speeches on days like this." A low ripple of laughter broke out. Even from the back, Jack could see a faint, easy smile on the man's face. "I work with veterans who come home and try to figure out what to do next," Ryan said. "Some of them had plans before they left. Some did not. All of them had to learn how to be different versions of themselves." He did not raise his voice, but the words carried. The band members at the side of the stage stood still. A bird circled above the field, a dark shape against the white sky. "In my line of work," Ryan continued, "I meet a lot of people who say I am nobody special. I just did my job. They say it the same way a mechanic might say he fixed your brakes, like it is nothing." Jack shifted his weight. The bark at his back pressed against his shoulders, grounding him. "What I have learned," Ryan said, "is that sometimes the quiet ones, the ones who go home and shrug off the things they have done, are the ones who carried the most weight when it mattered." Lily listened from her seat, hands clasped around the program in her lap. The sun caught the edges of the folded paper, bright against the maroon of her gown. Beside her, Emma watched the captain with a small crease between her brows. The phrase "different versions of themselves" lodged in her mind and did not move. Ryan spoke about finishing what you start, about service to others in and out of uniform, about showing up when it is hard and when it is boring and when nobody is applauding. He did not tell war stories. He kept it simple, his gaze moving over the faces in front of him, from the front row to the distant corner where a man in a green custodial shirt stood half in shadow. "Whoever you become," he said, "someone helped you get there. A teacher, a parent, a neighbor, maybe someone you do not even know the full story of. Remember them when you cross this field today." He ended with a nod toward the seniors. "Congratulations, class of 25. The applause rose again, louder this time. The band struck up a triumphant song, brass bright in the heat. Ryan stepped away from the podium and down the stairs at the side of the stage. Jack shifted the grocery bag in his hand. The flowers rustled. Sweat trickled down the back of his neck. He tried to wipe it away with his shoulder, careful not to crush the paper. In the stands, Chloe shaded her eyes with one hand and scanned the edge of the field. She spotted a familiar green shirt near the tree line, a flash of denim at the collar. She lifted her arm and waved, even though she knew Jack probably could not see her in the glare. On the field, the principal returned to the microphone to begin the long process of calling names. Staff members and a few volunteers moved among the rows of parents offering water and pointing out empty seats. Captain Cole did not sit back down right away. Instead, he walked along the front of the bleachers, shaking hands, accepting thanks from a few veterans who stood to greet him. A small metal pin in the shape of an eagle caught the sunlight on his lapel. He moved slowly one section at a time, talking with families, members of the school board, and the local pastor. Each time he gave the same easy half smile, the same firm handshake. As he worked his way along the line, his path curved gradually toward the far side of the field. It brought him closer to the tree where Jack stood holding his flowers, half hidden behind the trunk, eyes fixed on the stage where his daughters waited for their names. Names rolled over the speakers in a steady rhythm. Aaron Blake, Maria Bonilla. Each student rose, crossed the stage, shook hands, posed for a photo in front of the school banner. Applause came in little bursts scattered across the stands as families recognized their own. Jack watched from his sliver of shade. The grass under his boots was dry, a little brittle. The tree beside him hummed with insects. He shifted the grocery bag from one hand to the other. The plastic handles had begun to cut into his fingers. From here, the students looked smaller than they did at home. The gowns made them anonymous islands of maroon in straight rows. Every now and then he picked out a familiar gesture, a way a head tilted or a shoulder rolled, but he could not always tell if it belonged to Lily or Emma or someone else. He moved a little to the left, trying to see around a speaker stack. His shoulder bumped the rope that marked the edge of the reserved seating. The sign tied there at eye level read "Parents" in bold black letters. A woman in a pale blue dress was edging along the row nearby, looking for an opening to take photos. Her heels sank into the grass with each step. A teen girl followed her face pink, under a layer of makeup hair, sprayed into a neat curve under her cap. The woman stepped back to adjust her angle and nearly collided with Jack. "Oh," she said, catching herself. "Excuse me." "Sorry," Jack said, pulling the bag closer to his leg. Her eyes flicked to his shirt, reading the small embroidered word, "custodial." Something in her face shifted. Not quite disgust, not quite embarrassment, but a closing of the distance. "Are you supposed to be standing here?" she asked. Her voice was not loud, but it carried. "This section is for families." Jack glanced at the sign, then at the empty stretch of grass where he stood. He had kept his boots outside the rope. The tree trunk was at his back. There was no one around him for several feet. "I am just trying to see the stage," he said. "I will stay out of the way." She tightened her grip on the bouquet in her hand, the cellophane crinkling. "We had a problem last year with staff showing up in the backgrounds of all the photos," she said. "We had to edit out a janitor in almost every shot. It was very distracting." The girl behind her stared down at her shoes. "I remember," Jack said. The memory of that email thread of Macklin repeating the complaint in the break room came back with an unpleasant clarity. He had nodded then too. He nodded now. "I will move." He stepped further back until the bark of the tree pressed between his shoulder blades. He could feel the rough pattern through the cotton of his shirt. The shade shrank and the sun caught the side of his face. "Thank you," the woman said, already turning away. She lifted her phone arm straight, focusing on the stage. Jack swallowed and adjusted his grip on the bag again. His hand had gone a little numb. He turned his head and spat once into the grass, a small, bitter taste gone as soon as it came. On the stage, the line of students continued. Cameron Bright, Sophie Caldwell. The girl in the careful hair and cap made her way up the steps, shaking hands, smiling for the camera. The woman in blue steadied her phone with both hands, face smoothing into pride. Out among the bleachers, Captain Ryan Cole had reached the section where school board members sat. He traded a few words with them, nodded, and moved on. The path in front of the stands brought him closer to the far corner. A cluster of older men and women sat halfway up the bleachers, some wearing small pins on their lapels, others with battered ball caps resting on their knees. A few of them rose when they saw the dress blues approach. Ryan stopped to speak with them, leaning in to catch their words over the murmur of the crowd. One of the men thick around the middle with a white mustache and an old USMC cap clasped Ryan's hand with both of his. "Good to see the Corps still sends the sharp ones," the man said. Ryan smiled. "Just sent the available ones, sir." They shared a brief laugh. A woman next to the veteran reached up and smoothed his sleeve, fussing at a wrinkle. Ryan let her patient, then excused himself and continued along the row. Each step took him closer to the tree line. Down on the field, Emma watched him out of the corner of her eye. Something about the way he carried himself nagged at her. Not his posture exactly, more the way he scanned his attention, sliding past the immediate and into the edges of things. Next to her, Lily whispered, "He is kind of movie star handsome." Emma did not answer. Her focus drifted beyond him, toward the far end of the bleachers to the patch of shade under the tree. It took her a moment to find the green of her father's shirt separated from the crowd by a stretch of empty grass. There he was, alone as promised, back row like a shadow. Her chest eased a little just seeing him, even if he was small and partially obscured. She nudged Lily and tilted her chin in that direction. Lily followed her gaze, squinting. "I see him," she said. "He actually came early." "Of course he did," Emma said. They both watched as he shifted his stance, lifting a hand to wipe at his forehead. The movement exposed a strip of skin at his wrist as his sleeve rode up. The sunlight caught the faint lines of ink that had been hidden by fabric all morning. Ryan rounded the end of the bleachers and stepped off the packed dirt path onto the grass. He kept one eye on the stage, ready to pause and clap at intervals, but his habitual scan of the perimeter never really stopped. It had been trained into him long before he wore a liaison badge. His gaze swept past the parents in lawn chairs, the toddlers playing with discarded programs, the staff manning the water coolers. It snagged almost by habit on the lone figure under the tree. Custodial shirt, work pants, grocery bag, folded posture. Not unusual, not his business. He would have kept going if the man had not lifted his arm at that exact moment to wipe the sweat from his neck with the back of his wrist. The sleeve slid just enough to reveal the ink. A black shape curved the tail of a wing, the arc of a number. The image burned into Ryan's brain through months of repetition came rushing back with a clarity that made his breath hitch. For a second, the field dissolved. The sound of the band, the names over the speaker, the rustle of programs all fell away. In their place came the roar of rotors, the stink of jet fuel and burnt rubber. Orange light from flames licking at twisted metal. The silhouette of that same bird painted on a Humvee's armored door. The number 17 beneath it, a hand grabbing his vest and yanking him bodily into motion. His foot slowed, then stopped. He stood there on the grass, the sun hot on his neck, staring at the patch of skin above the man's watch band. The man lowered his arm. The sleeve slipped back into place. The ink disappeared. Ryan took a step forward. The grocery bag rustled as Jack shifted, aware of someone approaching. He looked up, expecting another parent with a gentle complaint about standing too close to their shot. Instead, he saw dress blues and a face he recognized without knowing the name. It was the look that did it. The way the man studied his surroundings first and him second. It was the look of someone who had slept light for a very long time. "Sir," Ryan said. Jack blinked. "You talking to me?" Ryan nodded once. Up close, the lines around the older man's eyes were deeper, but the structure of his face had the same solid strength as the one in the memory Ryan kept buried under official reports. "Nice speech," Jack said, because it seemed like something normal to say. "Thank you," Ryan replied on reflex. His attention kept sliding to the man's wrist. Was that a crow? Jack glanced down, following his gaze. He adjusted his grip on the bag so the sleeve dropped lower. "Just an old tattoo," he said. "Bad idea from a long time ago." Ryan wet his lips. "I have seen some bad ink," he said. "That looked very specific." He let his voice drop slightly on the last words, enough that they did not carry beyond the space between them. Jack felt the familiar prickle at the base of his neck. He had not heard the name in years, but his body recognized the posture, the tone. He had once stood in similar uniform, speaking to men much like himself, probing gently at edges they were not supposed to cross. He straightened, a little careful not to show it. "Can I help you with something, Captain?" The rank came out easily. Old habits again. Ryan's eyes flicked up to his face sharp. "You know the rank from the uniform," he said. "You know more than that." Jack shifted his weight. The keys at his hip chimed softly. "I watch television sometimes." On the field, the principal called another string of names. Ezra King, Natalie Lopez. Applause. A whoop from somewhere near the 50-yard line. Ryan reached up, touched the small radio bud in his left ear, and spoke so quietly that his lips barely moved. "Base, this is Cole," he said. "I might have a visual. Need eyes on a ghost unit insignia. Repeat possible ghost 17 contact." Static tickled in his ear, then settled. A voice from the command tent at the edge of the field responded just as low. "Copy, Cole. Say again, ghost 17. "Affirmative," he murmured. He let his hand drop from his ear. To anyone watching, it would have looked like a simple adjustment, nothing more. 3 rows up in the bleachers, the man with the white mustache and the USMC cap shifted in his seat. He had been watching the captain move more out of habit than curiosity. Old Marines tended to track other Marines the way retired firefighters tracked smoke. When he saw Ryan pause in the shade and fix his attention on a man in a green shirt, something about the set of his shoulders made the older man lean forward. The sunlight hit the brim of his cap. For a moment, the emblem stitched there glinted. A wing, a bird, a small embroidered 17, not official issue, a quiet nod between those who knew. He narrowed his eyes and studied the man under the tree. From this distance, he could not see the tattoo, but there was something about the stance, weight on the balls of his feet, head slightly turned, ears on the whole field, even while talking to one person. He felt his heart pick up a beat. Next to him, his wife touched his arm. "You all right, Tom?" she asked. He did not answer right away. His gaze stayed on the figure in the shade, the grocery bag, the keys, the uniform shirt. "I think," he said slowly, "I might be seeing a ghost." Down on the field, Lily and Emma could not hear any of this. They watched the captain step toward their father, saw the 2 men speak, and felt a small thread of unease begin to wind tight in their stomachs, even if they could not have said why. The sun pressed down harder, flattening the sounds of the field into a heavy buzz. For a moment, no one near the tree spoke. Ryan cleared his throat. "That tattoo," he said quietly, "I have only ever seen one unit wear that. Ghost 17. Jack's jaw tightened. The name slid through him like ice. He kept his face neutral. "Do not know what that is," he said. Ryan studied him. Up close he could see the faint white scar near the older man's hairline, the way his eyes never fully rested on any one point, always tracking motion at the edges. "You do," Ryan said. "You know exactly what that is." On the field another name echoed through the speakers. Grace Kim. Polite clapping. Jack glanced toward the stage more to break eye contact than anything. The grocery bag shifted the stems inside, rattling softly. "I am on the clock, Captain," he said. "Gotta keep walkways clear." "You are off the clock in 10 minutes, Ryan replied. "You have been off the grid for almost 18 years. Jack felt his heart thud once hard. "You got me mixed up with someone else." Ryan tapped his radio again, eyes never leaving Jack's face. His voice dropped to a murmur. "Cole here," he said. "Describe Ghost 17 lead. Afghan Theater, Helmand 07. The response came after a pause, filtered and flat. "Copy Cole. File says team leader male, mid-20s, at time Hispanic 5'10". Dark hair scar above right brow, identifying ink left wrist, corvid silhouette 17 numeral. Listed KIA, no recovered remains." Ryan let out a slow breath. The description matched too neatly for coincidence. He spoke without touching the radio, this time keeping his gaze level. "Funny thing," he said. "The file says our team lead died. Then I come to a high school in Texas and find a janitor who meets every point on that list, including the bird on his wrist." Jack's grip on the bag tightened until the plastic squealed. "You got no proof," he said. "Plenty of people get birds tattooed." "Not that bird," Ryan answered. "Not with that number." In the bleachers, Tom, the retired Marine, made up his mind. He put a hand on his knee and pushed himself to his feet with a soft groan. His cap tilted forward. Two other men rose with him, one thin and stooped, the other walking with the careful steps of someone whose back did not like stairs. "Tom," his wife said, "where are you going?" He did not look away from the figure in the shade. "Down," he said. "I am going down." They began to make their way toward the aisle, moving slower than they wanted to, bound by old joints and crowded knees. On the field, Emma noticed movement in the stands, the cluster of older men all wearing the same kind of quiet focus, descending in a line. She followed their path with her eyes, saw where it led. Under the tree, to her father, to the Marine captain. Beside her, Lily stopped fidgeting with her program. "Why are those guys heading toward Dad?" she whispered. "I do not know," Emma said. Her voice came out thin. Jack felt the hairs on his arms rise as he sensed more people approaching. There was a particular rhythm to the way veterans walked, a mixture of caution and purpose. He had known it for so long it felt like its own kind of sound. He flicked a glance past Ryan's shoulder and saw the three men coming off the bleachers. Their clothes were civilian, their eyes were not. "Look," he said, keeping his tone level. "I clean floors, I fix stuck doors. Whatever you are looking for, it is not here." Ryan took one more step, and enough that their conversation could not be easily overheard by anyone beyond the immediate area. The sun picked out faint lines at the corners of his eyes. "I was in Helmand," he said. "Dry riverbed convoy hit trucks disabled. We were pinned down in a ditch, heat so bad it hurt to breathe. No air, no support, no way out. Then 4 guys came over a ridge without calling it in. One of them had that bird on his wrist. He pulled me out by my vest. We did not even catch his name. Someone said it later in a tent, and the intel officer told us we never met him." Jack did not answer. The memory of heat and grit and the metallic taste of adrenaline rose up. He pushed it down. "People who wear that ink," Ryan went on, "do not end up mopping cafeteria floors at random high schools." Jack gave a tight, humorless smile. "You would be surprised what is available with no degree and no resume." A shadow fell across them as Tom and the other 2 veterans reached the edge of the rope. Up close, Tom could see the lines in Jack's face more clearly, the way his shoulders filled out the fabric of his shirt. "Sir," Tom said. Jack flinched at the title. His eyes flicked to the older man's cap. The small, unauthorized patch on the side. A black bird. The number 17 faded from years of sun. "I am not, sir," Jack said. "I am maintenance." Tom shook his head. His voice roughened. "You pulled me out of a burning MRAP outside Kandahar," he said. "You threw me into the back of a truck and told the driver not to stop even if you fell off. I never got to say thank you." Jack's breath stalled. The tree at his back felt too close. "I do not remember that," he said. "Bull," the second vet said. His hair was thin, his skin weathered. He wore a cheap button-down shirt and a pair of slacks that had seen better days. "You remember, you carried 2 of us at once. I know because I saw your face when the flares went off. You looked irritated." A ghost of something like old frustration flickered in Jack's expression before he smoothed it away. On the field, the principal kept reading names. Michael Lawson, Priya Mehta. The crowd clapped less in unison, now distracted by the knot of people forming at the far corner of the field. Heads turned. Conversations murmured. Near the front row, Mrs. Caldwell shaded her eyes, trying to see what had shifted. Her daughter Sophie had already sat back down with her diploma, but Caldwell's attention had drifted from the stage. In the seniors section, Emma could not take her eyes off the scene by the tree. Fathers were not usually surrounded by Marines in dress blues and older men with caps and pins. It did not fit. The principal cleared his throat and leaned toward the microphone. "As a reminder," he said brightly, "please hold your applause until the end of each row." His smile was a little strained. Ryan stood very still. "We thought you were dead," he said to Jack. "File said KIA. That unit held a service. We pour one out every year. We call it Ghost Day. We talk about the guy who dragged us out when everything went bad. Turns out he has been cleaning up after high schoolers in Texas." "I did not ask for any of that," Jack said. His voice had cooled. "I asked to be forgotten." Tom stepped closer to the rope. "You saved my life," he said simply. "I walked my daughter down the aisle because of what you did. She has 2 kids now. They would not exist without you." Jack looked at the ground. The grass near his boots had been scuffed, leaving a faint dirt patch. On the stage, the principal reached the section of the list marked R. "Olivia Ramirez," he called. More clapping. Emma felt her heart rate kick up. She knew what came next. She squeezed the program in her hands until the edge bent. "Next," the principal announced, "we have 2 of our top academic performers. Please join me in recognizing Lily Rivera and Emma Rivera." The sound of their names through the speakers made both sisters jolt, as if someone had tapped them on the shoulder. Students around them turned, smiling, nudging, ready to let them pass down the aisle. The row leader motioned for them to stand. Emma stayed glued to her seat. She could see her father from here, framed by the tree and the cluster of uniforms. The Marine captain had shifted, angling his body as if preparing to move him somewhere. The older men were all looking at Jack with a mixture of awe and relief that made no sense. "Lily Emma," the row leader hissed. "That is you." Lily rose halfway, then stalled, one hand on the back of her chair. "Dad," she whispered, eyes fixed on the corner of the field. Emma did not move. Her throat had gone dry. From the podium, the principal tried again, smile faltering. "Lily Rivera and Emma Rivera," he said. "Come on down, ladies." Parents craned their necks, looking for the 2 girls. The band faltered on a note, then recovered. On the far side of the field, Ryan noticed the hesitation on the stage. He heard the names, saw 2 girls in the sea of maroon not moving, while everyone else watched them. His gaze bounced from them to Jack and back. "Those your daughters?" he asked. Jack did not need to look. He knew their names by the slight strain in the principal's voice. He nodded once. "They do not know," he said. "Maybe they should," Ryan replied. Jack's face tightened. "Not like this." Macklin appeared at the edge of the parents' section, jogging awkwardly in his dress shoes. He had been standing near the sound booth and had noticed the cluster by the tree and the principal's voice losing its cadence. "Mr. Rivera," he called as he approached. "Everything all right?" Several phones were up now, parents on the fringes filming the unexpected scene, if only out of habit. Any break from the usual pattern drew lenses. "It is fine," Jack said. He shifted, trying to angle himself so he hid the worst of the interaction from general view. The grocery bag knocked against his leg. Ryan shook his head. "No," he said, "it is not fine." He turned to Macklin. "Sir, I need a quiet room to speak with Mr. Rivera, somewhere out of the way." Macklin bristled a little at being ordered around on his own field, but the uniform and the tone made it difficult to push back. "Is there some kind of problem?" he asked, eyes moving between them. "Nothing that will disrupt your program," Ryan said, keeping his voice calm. "We just need to talk somewhere that is not in front of 500 people." Tom cleared his throat. "We would like to be part of that conversation," he said. Jack looked at the stage. The principal had moved on to the next name, smooth professional voice back in place, but the rhythm of applause around the R section was off. Lily and Emma were still in their seats. He could see the confusion in their faces even from this distance. He imagined them walking up there, diplomas in hand, wondering why their father had disappeared into a knot of strangers at the back of the field. He took a breath. "Fine," he said. "A room is fine." Macklin gestured toward the side door of the school building that opened near the field. "Use classroom B12, he said. "It is empty. Just do not make a scene." No one laughed. Ryan nodded. "Thank you." Jack took one step, then another out of the shade. The sun hit his face full on, making him squint. The grocery bag swung at his side. The keys on his belt jingled with each stride, a small, stubborn soundtrack that had followed him through years of quiet work. He did not look up at the bleachers. He did not look at the stage. He kept his eyes on the doorway of the school, the cool darkness beyond it, a small mercy. In the seniors section, Lily grabbed Emma's hand. "Where is he going?" Lily asked. Emma swallowed. "I think something is wrong." They stepped out of their row together, ignoring the row leader's urgent whispers to stay in line. They moved toward the edge of the student section, toward the gate closest to the building entrance. A teacher reached out to block them. "Girls, you need to wait for your row." Lily dodged around her. "We will be right back," she said, though she had no idea if that was true. They reached the sideline just in time to see their father disappear through the door of classroom B12, the Marine captain and 3 older men following behind him. The door closed with a soft final click. Emma stopped short, staring at the rectangle of glass set into the door. In that reflection, she could see the stage, the stands, and a faint shadow of her own face, eyes wide. Her fingers slipped into the front pocket of her bag and brushed the edge of the photo she had tucked there, the younger version of her father helmet on Blackbird behind him. Something clicked into place in her mind, not fully formed, but enough to make her chest tighten. Lily reached for the handle of the classroom door. A hand landed gently but firmly on her shoulder. "Let them talk," a voice said. They turned. Mr. Harris stood there, tie still, crooked eyes serious. "This is about him," he said quietly. "You will get your turn. Right now, you need to breathe." Through the narrow window in the door, the outline of figures moved into the classroom. The glass reflected the bright field outside, erasing the details. All Lily and Emma could see were shapes and the faint impression of their father standing among them. Classroom B12 smelled like dry erase markers and old air conditioning. The blinds were half drawn, letting in slats of light that cut across the rows of empty desks. A motivational poster on the wall showed a mountain and the word perseverance in block letters. Somebody had drawn a smiley face in pencil on the corner of the whiteboard and not erased it properly. Jack stepped inside and stopped, just past the threshold. The room felt smaller than it did when he vacuumed it at night. Ryan closed the door behind them with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. Tom and the 2 other veterans filed in and found spots near the back wall, as if by old instinct. They did not sit. Neither did Jack. Ryan stayed close to the door between the group and the handle, not quite blocking it, not quite moving away. For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of the air unit filled the silence. Outside, faint through the walls, the principal's amplified voice carried on, naming students who had no idea what was happening in B12. Ryan was the first to move. He crossed to the teacher's desk, set his cover down with care, and then leaned against the front edge of the desk, hands resting on either side of him. The ribbons on his chest caught a strip of light, small bars of color. "I am Captain Ryan Cole," he said. 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines back then. Liaison now. Jack stayed near the middle of the room, a student desk between him and the chalkboard. His keys tapped lightly against the metal chair when he shifted. "Jack Rivera," he said. "Custodial." The pause was slight. "Used to be sergeant." "Used to be," Tom repeated softly. The repetition held a kind of wonder in it. Ryan folded his hands loosely. "The last time I saw you, you did not give a name," he said. "You threw me into a vehicle I did not think would make it out of that wadi and then ran back toward gunfire." "I told the driver to keep moving," Jack said. The words came without him choosing them. The wadi, the dust, the smell of cordite. All of it was suddenly so close he could have reached out and touched it. "You were not supposed to look back." "I did," Ryan said. "That is how I remember your face." The classroom flickered in Jack's vision for a heartbeat, replaced by the long, dry cut of a riverbed. The boards on the ground under his boots became loose rocks. The hum of the air unit turned into the thud of distant explosions. He forced the image away, blinked, and the rows of desks snapped back into place. "I was younger," Jack said. Ryan allowed himself a short huff of air that was almost a laugh. "We both were." He straightened slightly and focused his voice, settling into something almost matter-of-fact. "Helmand Province," he said. "Summer, you remember the heat?" Jack closed his eyes a moment. The air in the room was cool, but the memory of that heat was its own kind of temperature. It had been a heavy radiating thing that made everything taste like metal. "Our convoy got hit in a choke point," Ryan went on. "IED took out lead small arms on the sides. We were in the open, nowhere to go. You know the terrain out there. It is like standing in a frying pan." Tom shifted his weight, the floor creaking under his boot. The other 2 vets stayed still, their faces set. "We had casualties in the first minute," Ryan said. Communications were static. The call to pull back never got through or came too late. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how my story ends. In a hole in a place I cannot even spell right. He looked at Jack. And then you showed up. Jack shook his head. It was not just me. 4-man team, Ryan said, nodding. No unit patches, no names, just that bird and the 17. You did not say who sent you. You did not stick around afterward. You moved like you had rehearsed the whole scene 1,000 times. One of the guys checked our bracelets, tagged the KIA, loaded the wounded, kept count even under fire. That was you. Jack stared at a spot on the floor between 2 desks, a small scuff in the linoleum. His voice, when it came, was low. There was a call, he said. High priority extraction. Friendly forces pinned, no air, no armor, no time. Ghost unit, Tom murmured. His eyes had gone distant in the same way. We were a team, Jack said. I was not supposed to be memorable. You were, Ryan said quietly. Silence settled again. The only sound was the rattle of the air vent and the faint echo of cheering when another row of students finished crossing the stage. Outside the door in the hallway, 2 sets of footsteps stopped. The glass panel in the door brightened for a moment as figures leaned in close. Their outlines were faint against the glare from the field. Emma pressed her ear to the slim space between the door and the frame, trying to catch words through the muffled barrier. Lily stood beside her, hand still on the handle, knuckles white. Inside, Ryan took a breath and shifted the conversation. Your file says you died 2 months after that, he said. Training flight went down. No remains recovered, but they closed the book. Memorial service, folded flag, your name read at a ceremony none of us were invited to. That is what we were told. You believed it, Jack said. Ryan nodded. We did not want to, he said, but in this line of work that is not uncommon. Jack absorbed that. Somewhere far away from this fluorescent-lit room, strangers had stood in formation while a bugle played for a man who was very much alive, standing now in a high school classroom, holding a grocery bag full of flowers. My wife died, Jack said. The sentence came out flat. It hung in the air, separate from the war story, heavier somehow. Ryan went still. Jack swallowed. He looked at his hands, at the scrapes from old work, at the faint line of a burn from a hot pan, at the pale scar near his thumb from shrapnel. He let his mind go back to a different room, a different kind of fluorescent light. They handed me a note in a briefing, he said. We were going over a map, coordinates, call signs, all of that. A runner comes in, whispers to the lieutenant. He hands me this slip of paper. It said my wife was in labor, early, complications. His voice thinned on the last word. I was told it was under control, he continued, that I needed to finish the brief, that there was nothing I could do then anyway. 2 hours later, someone else came in with another note. He did not repeat the second note. He did not need to. The room seemed to understand the gap. They gave me emergency leave, he said. By the time I got home, she was gone. They had the girls in the nursery, tiny, tubes, tape on their skin. I held them for the first time at her funeral. Tom's jaw worked like he was chewing something tough that would not go down. One of the other vets looked at the tile ceiling, blinking fast. Ryan's throat flexed as he swallowed. I am sorry, he said. The words felt insufficient, but they were what he had. Jack gave a short nod. Me too, he said. You could have stayed in, Ryan said after a moment. Stateside billet, training, desk, there are options. Jack let out a breath that was almost a laugh, stripped of humor. You and I both know stateside is just a different kind of staging area, he said. One bad week in a place I cannot say out loud, and they start pulling whoever they can, wherever they can. I knew what ghost work was. They do not put you behind a desk for long if they think you are still useful in the field. Ryan did not argue. He had seen enough quick orders, enough sudden deployments to know the truth in that. They offered me everything, Jack said. Housing, pension, that nice graph they show you with benefits and numbers. They showed me pictures of neighborhoods, near bases, playgrounds, a neat little house with a flag in front. He shook his head slowly. Every picture came with a disclaimer, subject to orders, subject to needs of the service, subject to your willingness to disappear whenever they call. He looked up, finally meeting Ryan's eyes. I had 2 babies who had already lost one parent, he said. I was not going to roll the dice on them losing another. The air in the room felt denser. Even the hum of the vent seemed to lower. So you walked, Ryan said. I took discharge, Jack replied. I signed the papers, handed over my ID, turned in my gear. I told them I was done. They told me nobody is ever really done. Maybe they were right, but I have not worn that uniform since. Tom rubbed a hand over his face. You could have used the pension, he said. Veterans housing. You earned that. Jack shrugged one shoulder. There were strings, he said. Reserve duty, call-ups, reviews. I did not want strings. I wanted mornings and nights, diapers and feedings, and standing in line at the free clinic with a screaming toddler. That is the mission I picked. He did not add that the death benefit from his wife's life insurance had become the seed of a college fund carefully guarded, added to, with every extra shift. Every bicycle tire repaired in a dim garage at midnight. He did not have to. The tired pride in his voice filled in the picture. Outside the door, Emma pressed her forehead against the cool glass eyes closed. She could not catch every word, but enough phrases reached her in pieces. Wife died. Babies. Did not want strings. Her chest hurt. She grabbed Lily's wrist and held on. Inside, Ryan pushed off the desk and took a few steps closer. He kept his movements slow, hands visible. You have been working here how long? He asked. Jack thought. The years had blurred into a repeating loop of semesters and summers, lockers opening and closing, floors waxed and stripped and waxed again. 17 years, he said. Since the girls were 1, it was the only job I could find that had predictable hours. Early mornings, late afternoons, no travel. Schools do not deploy. You fix things, Ryan said. Floors, lights, jammed doors, broken desks, Jack said. I know every leak in this place. I know which toilets explode when kids flush half a roll. I know which hallway squeaks when you walk down it, and which tile on the 3rd floor will trip you if you do not watch your feet. There was a faint warmth in his tone now, a reluctant affection for the building he kept running. And you raised your daughters, Ryan added. Jack nodded. I made breakfast, he said, packed lunches when we could afford more than cafeteria vouchers, walked them into kindergarten, sat in the back at school plays, helped with math homework and pretended to be bad at it so they would feel smart, showed up for parent conferences even when I had to go back and wax a gym floor after. His eyes softened when he spoke of them lines at the corners easing. They asked me to stand in the back today, he said, away from the other parents. I get it. Kids are cruel even when they do not mean to be. There is a hierarchy for everything. Some jobs look nicer in pictures. He glanced at his shirt at the faint ring of sweat at the collar. They do not know, he said again. Not about any of this. They think I worked on bases and then at schools. They think I patched fences and replaced fans. That is enough. Is it? Tom asked quietly. Jack looked at him. It has to be. The second vet spoke up for the first time. His voice had a thin rasp as if sand had been ground into it at some point and never entirely left. There is a group of us, he said. 6. We get together every year on the day you dragged our sorry backsides out of that mess. We drink too much bad beer, tell the same stories, and then someone always says, I wish we knew his name. We called it Ghost Day because that is what you were, a rumor that saved our lives. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The case was scratched. He swiped and turned the screen toward Jack. A photo filled it. 6 men in civilian clothes stood in a backyard. A grill smoked behind them. Children ran through a sprinkler in the background, limbs blurred. The men held plastic cups and wore the relaxed expressions of people who had lived long enough to age into themselves. These are the guys from that convoy, the vet said. That is Tom. That is me. That is Cole there before he got all shiny. The kids in the back, some of them would not exist if not for you. Jack stared at the image. He saw the slouch of shoulders he remembered, the distinctive tilt of a head, the scars he had helped bandage now softened by time. The children in the background laughed mid-run, frozen that way forever. Ryan watched his face. You disappeared on us, he said. We mourned you. We toasted you. We told our kids there was a man who walked into fire so someone else could walk out. Finding you here cleaning up spilled soda and getting yelled at by parents for being in the frame that sits wrong. Jack met his gaze. It sits right to me, he said. They see a janitor, that is all. I can go home at the end of the day and not bring ghosts with me. Outside, a cheer rose muffled but unmistakable as another row of graduates finished crossing. The sound seeped in through the thin classroom walls. Emma shifted her weight, the soles of her shoes squeaking softly on the hall tile. Lily wiped at her cheek with the back of her hand, surprised to find it damp. Inside, Tom cleared his throat again. With respect, Sergeant, he said, you do not get to decide once and for all what you are to everyone. To your girls, maybe. To you. That is your call. To us, you are the reason we are standing here. That is not something you can mop away. Jack turned his head toward the window. From here, he could see just a sliver of field, a slice of sky, and the top of the bleachers. He could not see his daughters, but he could feel them out there, somewhere between this room and that stage. His hand tightened on the plastic handles until the bag crinkled. He did not notice that his other hand had drifted almost unconsciously to his left wrist, fingers resting over the hidden ink, as if to make sure it had not vanished. The handle of the classroom door rattled once a small, impatient sound in the heavy air. All heads turned. The handle stilled, as if whoever had tried it had been stopped. Ryan glanced at the glass panel. Two blurred shapes hovered there, not quite close enough to be seen clearly. He looked back at Jack. "They are out there," he said quietly. Jack did not ask how he knew. A parent could feel his kids in a way that did not require eyes. "I did not want this for them," Jack said. "Questions, old stories, the kind of attention you cannot shut off when you go home." "What did you want?" Ryan asked. Jack thought of early mornings in a small kitchen, cartoons on a flickering television, little feet kicking against a high chair, homework spread across the table, the comfort of routine even when it meant counting pennies at the end of the month. "Ordinary," he said. "The kind of life where the biggest problem is a bad grade or a leaky roof." "You did not get ordinary," Tom said. "You earned something else." Jack gave him a wry look. "I got leaky roofs," he said. "Plenty of those." The thin vet with the rasp cleared his throat. "My wife calls it borrowed time," he said. "The years after that day. She says we are living on a loan we never could have taken out on our own. She makes us do something on Ghost Day besides drink and talk. We donate to scholarships. We volunteer at the VA. We tell our kids why it matters." He shifted his shoulders stiff. "We tell them about a man we thought was dead, because it felt wrong to let that debt just sit there gathering dust." Ryan nodded slowly. "You did your best to cut ties," he said to Jack. "New name, new job, different state. You built a life. That is good. That is healthy. It is also built on top of something that did not actually end." "You make it sound like I am hiding," Jack said. "Are you not?" Ryan asked. Jack opened his mouth, then closed it. His gaze dropped to the floor, to the scuffed corner where students had dragged desks over and over. He had buffed that spot a dozen times. "I did not want them to think I walked away from something important," he said. Tom frowned. "You did walk away," he said, "from a career, from a machine that eats people and does not always remember their names. You walked towards something else." Jack shook his head. "They see uniforms on television," he said. "Flags, ceremonies, big speeches. It looks noble. It looks like purpose. I did not want them to look at me and see the guy who quit that for a broom." He rubbed his thumb over the inside of his palm, feeling the ridge of an old callus. "I could take them being embarrassed about the job," he said. "Kids get embarrassed about everything. But if they thought I chose them over something better, like they were the thing that held me back, that is a weight they would carry forever." On the other side of the door, Lily let out a soft, strangled sound. Emma grabbed her wrist harder. Inside, Ryan let the words settle. "So you tried to erase it," he said. "No photos, no stories, nothing on the walls." Jack nodded once. "If it is not there," he said, "they do not have to compete with it." "But you kept the tattoo," the thin vet said. His gaze dropped to Jack's wrist. "You kept the coin. You kept enough to remember." Jack looked at his hand where it rested against his belt fingers, grazing the fabric above the hidden ink. "It reminds me who I used to fight for," he said quietly, "and who I fight for now." The room was very still. Then the door opened. Lily did not wait for permission this time. She pushed past the brief resistance of the latch and stepped into the classroom gown, swishing around her legs. Emma followed the photograph still tucked into her bag, her eyes wide and bright. Mr. Harris hovered in the hall for half a second, then gave Ryan a small apologetic shrug and moved away. He knew when he had lost a battle. Jack turned at the sound of their shoes on the tile. For a moment his face went completely open, stripped of all the practiced calm. "I told you to stay with the ceremony," he said. "We heard," Lily blurted. Her voice wobbled. "Not everything. Enough." Emma swallowed. "You were in Helmand," she said. "Ghost 17. Jack looked from one to the other. There was no use denying it now. The lines he had drawn between past and present had smudged the moment they pressed their ears to the door. He let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in his chest for years. "Yeah," he said. "I was." Lily crossed the distance between them in 3 quick steps and threw her arms around him. The grocery bag crumpled between them, stems poking her gown, but she did not let go. Emma stepped in from the other side, wrapping her arms around both of them. The keys at his hip pressed into Lily's side. The scent of floor cleaner clung to his shirt. Under it, she could smell his usual mix of soap and coffee and some cologne that had long ago faded into the background. "I am sorry," Lily said into his shoulder. "We told you to stand in the back. We made you feel like you had to hide." He held them both, one large hand cupping the back of each head, in a gesture that had not changed since they were small enough to fit under his chin. "You did not make me hide," he said. "I was already doing that on my own." Emma pulled back just enough to look up at him. Tears had made her lashes stick together. "We found a picture," she said, "in your closet. You look so different, and not different. There is this look in your eyes like you are somewhere else. We asked the internet. It gave us ghost stories and not much else." She fumbled in her bag and pulled out the photo, the edges now slightly bent from being gripped so tightly. She held it up. "Why did you not tell us?" she asked. Jack took the picture, carefully lifting it from her fingers. The younger man stared back at him. Dust Gear, the painted bird. It felt like looking at a relative he had lost rather than at himself. "Because I stopped being that person the day you were born," he said, "or the day your mother died. It is all the same day in my head." "You could not have just stopped," Lily said. "They keep talking like you are some kind of legend." Her chin jerked in the direction of Tom and the others. The three veterans tried to look less conspicuous and failed. "I handed in my ID," Jack said. "I did not know how to be both. You cannot be in two places at once. Not the way that job asks. Not, and be the kind of dad you deserved." Emma's voice dropped. "You thought we would feel guilty?" she said. Jack did not answer. He did not have to. Lily wiped at her face with the heel of her hand. "We were embarrassed," she said. "About the mop, not about you. About how people look at you, at us. Not about what you did before we even existed." She took a breath that hitched halfway. "We made you smaller in our heads so other people would not have a target. That is on us." "You are teenagers," Jack said softly. "You are allowed to care too much what people think. That is part of the deal." "It does not make it right," she said. Emma reached out and traced the faint outline of his tattoo through the thin fabric of his sleeve. "When you did all that," she said, "those missions, those things no one writes down, were you scared?" He thought about it. About long nights waiting for green lights, about the sound of distant artillery, about the quiet that came after an extraction heavier than the noise before it. "Sometimes," he said, "mostly I was busy. Busy does not leave a lot of room for scared." "I am scared right now," Emma said. "Of me?" he asked. "Of losing the version of you I know," she said. "The one who burns pancakes and knows which tile squeaks and buys the cheapest flowers, but makes them feel like they came from a fancy shop." He smiled, a small, tired thing. "That is still me," he said. "Both of those men fit in the same body, like it or not." Tom cleared his throat gently this time. "Girls," he said, "none of us is trying to take him away from you. We just want you to know the whole of who raised you, the chapters before you showed up." Lily looked at him properly for the first time. His cap, his stance, the way he seemed both fragile and unbreakable at once. "You were there?" she said. He nodded. "He saved my life," he replied. "That is why I get to stand in a hot field and complain about my knees today." The thin vet lifted his phone again. "I already showed him this," he said to Jack, "but maybe you should see it too." He swiped to another photo. This one showed a teenage girl in a prom dress, grinning at the camera arm hooked through the man's. A corsage bloomed on her wrist. "That is my kid," he said. "She came home at midnight that night, kicked off her shoes and said, 'Dad, you dance weird.' I thought she has no idea how close she came to never saying that." He turned the phone so Lily and Emma could see. "You gave me that," he said. "Indirectly, but still." Ryan shifted his weight, letting the moment sit. Then he spoke, his tone careful. "There are men out there," he said, "who raise a glass every year to a guy they think died in a crash. They tell their kids about him. They talk about honor and sacrifice and all those big words while they stand over a grill and flip burgers. It would mean something to them to know you are not a ghost." Jack lifted his gaze from the photo to Ryan. "It means something to me," Ryan added. "You saving my life is why my kids exist. I would like them to shake your hand one day instead of just hearing a name I cannot put a face to." Jack absorbed that. The idea of strangers' children in some other state saying his name around a backyard fire pit felt unreal and strangely intimate. "I do not need a parade," he said. "This is not about a parade," Ryan said. "It is about truth, about not letting the story end in the wrong place." "They already have a story," Jack said. He looked at Lily and Emma. "It is ours. It works." Emma met his gaze. "It can hold more," she said. Lily nodded, tears drying on her cheeks, leaving faint salt tracks. "You made a choice," she said. "We get that now. It was for us. That does not make the part before us something dirty you have to scrub off." The word scrub sat between them familiar. Jack exhaled slowly. The sound seemed to deflate something in his shoulders. He looked around the room again. The desks, the whiteboard, the crooked poster about perseverance. This was his world now, just as surely as the dust and night vision goggles had been before. Outside, another wave of applause rolled over the field. The ceremony was marching on with or without them. Ryan straightened. "The people out there are already curious," he said. "They have seen the uniforms, the gathering under the tree, you being pulled away. Rumors are going to start. I can speak or I can stay quiet. If I speak, I want to do it with your consent, not in spite of it." Jack went very still. The idea of his name, his past, his choices laid out in front of the entire football field made his stomach tighten. "I do not need their approval," he said. "Maybe not," Ryan said, "but your daughters might need to see you the way we see you. At least once in the light, not through a cracked door." Lily took his hand. Emma took the other. Their fingers were small compared to his, but the grip was firm. "Dad," Emma said, "let them know who you are, all of it." "We will stand with you," Lily said. "Front row, not hiding." Jack looked from one face to the other. In their eyes, he saw a blend of fear and pride, and something steadier underneath. He realized there was no path back to the version of the day he had imagined. The quiet spot under the tree, the small wave, the walk home. That script had already been rewritten. He nodded once. "All right," he said, "but I am not giving a speech." Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "I can handle that part," he said. He picked up his cover from the desk and settled it back on his head. Tom straightened his cap. The thin vet squared his shoulders as if preparing for formation. Jack checked the grip on the grocery bag more out of habit than necessity. The flowers inside had bent some petals bruised, but they were still flowers. He glanced at his left wrist. For a moment he considered tugging his sleeve down. Instead, he rolled it up an inch, exposing the edge of the ink to the cool classroom air. "Let us get this over with," he said. Lily squeezed his hand. Emma nodded. Together they turned toward the door, where sunlit dust motes floated in the narrow window like tiny suspended pieces of the world outside. The hallway outside B12 spilled them into brightness. Sound hit first. Names over the loudspeakers, scattered cheering, the distant blare of the band. Heat pooled in waves near the glass doors. Ryan stepped out ahead, his dress shoes clicking on the concrete. Jack followed with Lily and Emma on either side of him. Tom and the other vets came last, forming a loose tail to the little procession. When they pushed through the exit onto the edge of the field, the change in light made them all squint. The football turf stretched out in front of them, chairs in neat rows, the stage at center. The ceremony had moved into the last third of the alphabet. "Tyler Vaughn, the principal's voice boomed. A boy in an oversized gown shuffled across the stage. The photographer snapped a picture. The principal handed over a diploma with practiced cheer. Then his gaze slid past the student and froze. From his vantage point on the stage, he could see the group emerging from the side of the building. The Marine captain in full dress, the 3 older men, the custodian in a green shirt, 2 girls in gowns he recognized from a dozen honor roll assemblies. His smile faltered for half a beat before muscle memory pulled it back into place. Parents noticed next. Heads turned toward the disturbance at the edge of the field. Phones lifted lenses hunting. Along the sideline, a few teachers shifted uneasily. Macklin frowned, already calculating how many emails he would have to answer if this got strange. Ryan changed course slightly, angling toward the steps that led up to the stage. His stride lengthened without becoming a run. He moved with the same calm urgency he had shown in the classroom. The principal leaned away from the microphone as Ryan approached. "Captain Cole," he said under his breath, smile still pinned on for the crowd. "Is there an issue?" Ryan kept his own expression neutral. "I need the microphone for a moment," he said. "With your permission." "The program is full," the principal replied. "We are already tight on time. If this is about security, we can handle it quietly." Tom and the other vets had stopped near the front row of chairs. They watched Ryan, faces set. Jack and the girls stood just behind them, not sure where to put their hands. Ryan glanced at them once, then back to the principal. "Sir," he said, soft but firm, "you introduced me as someone who values service. There is a man here whose service you have been stepping around every day. I intend to say his name. It will not take long." For a second, resistance flickered. Then something in the principal's posture eased. Maybe it was the uniform. Maybe it was the way Lily and Emma stood beside their father, heads high despite the attention. The principal stepped aside. "Make it brief," he said. His voice into the microphone rose again into public mode. "And now, before we conclude, Captain Cole has a few words to add on behalf of our visiting veterans." An expectant ripple moved through the crowd. The band quieted. The last student who had crossed the stage hurried back to his seat. Ryan took the microphone. The metal felt warm from the sun. "Thank you, Principal Harris," he said. "I know you have been patient with me already today." A polite chuckle rolled from the stands. Ryan scanned the field, letting his gaze settle briefly on the graduates on the packed bleachers and finally on the small cluster by the front row. "Before I came here," he said, "I was told this school respected service, that it invited veterans to speak to be part of your ceremonies. That meant something to me. I have spent most of my adult life around people who go when they are called, no matter the cost." He paused. The microphone picked up the soft breath he drew. "Today," he went on, "I met someone who went when it mattered and then came home and chose another kind of service. He did it quietly, so quietly that most of you only know him by his first name on a small plastic badge." He lifted his hand and pointed toward the front of the parents section. "Mr. Jack Rivera," he said, "would you come up here a second?" For a heartbeat, everything stalled. The field seemed to hold its breath. Jack's insides lurched. The urge to turn and walk the other way flared. Lily's fingers tightened around his. Emma squeezed his other hand. Between them, he stood still. Chloe, sitting high in the bleachers, felt her stomach flip. She looked down and saw Jack start to move. He walked toward the stage with the slow, reluctant steps of someone heading into a place he had no intention of ever visiting. His keys chimed with each step. The grocery bag crinkled. The heat raised the hair at the back of his neck. As he reached the steps, Ryan extended a hand. Jack took it more because it was there than because he needed help climbing. His boots thudded on the wooden steps. The stage boards flexed under his weight. Up close, everything felt too exposed. The graduates in their rows, the sea of faces in the stands, the flags at the back of the stage stirring in a faint breeze. Ryan angled the microphone away from Jack's mouth, giving him space. "This is the part he does not want me to talk about," Ryan said, facing the crowd again. "I am going to talk anyway." A low murmur rippled. 18 years ago, Ryan said, in a place called Helmand Province, my convoy drove into an ambush. I do not need to paint the picture for you. You have seen enough news footage in your lives. His eyes flicked to the section of older veterans. Several of them were leaning forward now, elbows on their knees, listening hard. "We were stuck," he said, "pinned down, outnumbered, outgunned. We had wounded in the open and no clear way out. We were told later that no support could reach us in time." He let the words settle, kept them simple. Then 4 men showed up who were not supposed to exist. A few heads turned at that. They wore no visible unit patches, Ryan said. Their orders did not appear in any report you can request. The only mark they had was a small tattoo here. He touched his own left wrist lightly. "A blackbird," he said, "with the number 17. He turned his head toward Jack. "One of those men," he said, "grabbed the back of my vest, dragged me out of a crater, and refused to let go until he shoved me into a vehicle that had no business still running. I did not know his name. I did not get to thank him. 2 months later, we were told he died in a training accident. We held a memorial for a ghost." The field was silent now except for the faint flap of banners and the buzz of distant cicadas. Ryan raised the microphone a little. "That man is not a ghost," he said. "He has been right here, cleaning your halls, fixing your desks, mopping up your spilled drinks, stepping out of your photos so you did not have to crop him out later." The words landed heavier near the front row where Mrs. Caldwell sat. Her cheeks went pale, then flushed. She looked at Jack standing on the stage and clasped her bouquet so tightly the stems bent. "Mr. Rivera led one of the most effective rescue units I have ever heard of," Ryan said. "He and his team brought people home who were not meant to see another sunrise. They offered him promotion, medals, a path up. Then, while he was still in, his wife died giving birth to their twin daughters." A small, sharp sound escaped from somewhere in the stands. A hand flew to a mouth. Ryan nodded toward Lily and Emma at the foot of the stage, where they had stopped, unwilling to climb higher, but unable to stay away. "He could have stayed in," Ryan said. "He could have taken the pension, the housing, the desk job that might not have stayed a desk job. Instead, he walked away from that uniform so he could walk his girls into kindergarten, work nights so he could be there in the mornings, take a job most of you look past so that he could make sure 2 little kids did not lose a second parent." His voice did not rise. If anything, it dropped, carrying more weight for the restraint. "For 17 years, he said, he has carried trash and tables and the weight of that choice without asking anyone to clap for him. Some of us found him today because we have been toasting his memory every year thinking he was dead." He turned, facing Jack fully. His right hand came up in a crisp salute. "Sergeant Rivera," he said loud enough for the whole field to hear, from the men whose lives you saved, from the families who exist because you did your job and then chose another one, thank you. In the stands, Tom struggled to his feet. His back protested, but he straightened it anyway. He lifted his hand to his brow in a deliberate, precise salute. The thin vet beside him joined. One by one, others around them rose. Some wore old uniforms. Some wore baseball caps and polos. Some simply placed a hand over their heart because it felt like the thing to do. Down on the field, the seniors got to their feet without waiting for permission. A ripple of motion passed through the maroon gowns. Chairs scraped. Programs slid to the ground. Chloe stood heart-pounding, clapping hard enough that her palms stung. Mrs. Caldwell rose too slower than the rest. Shame sat heavy on her shoulders, but she pushed against it. Her daughter glanced between Jack and her mother, eyes wide. The principal stepped forward on the stage. His earlier irritation had melted into something more complicated. He faced Jack and bowed his head. "Mr. Rivera," he said into the microphone, "on behalf of Cedar Ridge High, I want to apologize. We asked you to stay out of our way when we should have been thanking you for clearing it." He stepped closer and held out his hand. Jack took it. The principal gripped it with both of his, as if anchoring something. "We overlooked you," he said softly away from the mic. "That ends today." Macklin stood at the base of the stage looking up. His usual briskness knocked sideways. "Jack," he called, voice a little rough. "I am sorry about this morning, about the photos. I did not see the whole picture." Jack let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "None of you did," he said. There was no anger in it, only a tired sort of truth. Mrs. Caldwell moved toward the steps, dragging Sophie with her. "Mr. Rivera," she called, a little breathless, "I owe you an apology too." She reached the edge of the stage and looked up, eyes bright. The careful makeup around them had smudged. "I was rude," she said. "I treated you like part of the scenery. I was so focused on my daughter's picture that I did not think about who else was in the frame." She swallowed. "I am sorry." Jack shifted the wood under his boots, creaking. "You were protecting your kid's moment," he said. "I get that." "It does not excuse it," she said. He nodded once. "Thank you," he said. It was as much as he could offer. Ryan spoke again, the microphone picking him up. "There is one more thing," he said. "The Corps has authorized me to extend an offer. Sergeant Rivera, if you are willing, we would like you to train logistics officers. Stateside, office hours, no deployments. It comes with full benefits backdated for your service. The paperwork takes time, but the decision starts with you." Jack blinked. The idea barely fit in his head. "I am not looking for a promotion," he said into the mic, voice echoing over the field. "This is not a promotion," Ryan said. "It is recognition, and a way to make sure 2 college-bound young women do not have to work 3 jobs in a cafeteria to pay tuition." At that, murmurs started again, this time with a different tone. The principal stepped to the microphone beside Ryan. "The school board chair is signaling frantically at me," he said, a faint, crooked smile touching his mouth. "Apparently we have something to add. Effective immediately, we would like to offer Mr. Rivera the position of facilities director. That comes with a raise. It also comes with 2 full academic scholarships for Lily and Emma Rivera, redeemable at any in-state university that will have the good sense to accept them." Lily's hand flew to her mouth. Emma felt her knees wobble. Chloe yelled, "Yes," from the bleachers before she could stop herself. The band members, who had been standing with their instruments half raised, started to clap their free hands against their thighs. Jack looked at his daughters. Their faces were a mix of shock and delight, and something rawer that he could not name. "I did not do any of this for scholarships," he said. "We know," Emma said. "That is why it matters." Ryan reached into the inner pocket of his coat. His fingers closed around a familiar circle. "I have been holding on to something," he said. "You left it behind when you walked. I kept it because I could not quite let go." He pulled out the challenge coin. In the sunlight, the engraved bird and the number 17 gleamed. Gasps rustled through the section of veterans. They knew that mark. Ryan placed the coin in Jack's open palm. The metal felt cool against his skin, heavier than its size should allow. "You do not have to carry it in your pocket anymore," Ryan said quietly. "You can carry it however you want." Jack closed his fingers around it. The edge bit into his calluses. He unclipped his key ring from his belt thumb, finding the split in the metal band by feel. Years of opening classrooms and closets had taught his hands how to make room for one more key. He pried the ring apart and slid the coin on. It scraped once, then settled among the jagged teeth of the keys. When he let the ring fall back against his hip, metal kissed metal. The The new weight shifted the sound slightly a deeper chime among the usual jangle. Lily heard it and smiled through her tears. Emma did too. From the stands, the chant started somewhere in the student section and spread outward. "Thank you, Mr. Rivera," one voice called. Others picked it up. "Thank you, Mr. Rivera." Again, louder. Jack stood on the stage, shoulders straight, his daughters at the bottom of the steps, his past and present hanging together from his belt. And for the first time in a very long time, he did not step aside to get out of the frame. The ceremony unraveled slowly. The chant faded into scattered clapping, then into isolated shouts of congratulations. The band struck up one last song and stumbled only a little through the middle. Graduates tossed caps in the air, a brief flurry of maroon against the blue sky, then scrambled to find them again in the confusion. On the stage, Ryan stepped back and gave the microphone to the principal. Jack moved away from the center, grateful for the chance to stand somewhere that felt less like a target. People kept coming. A teacher Jack barely knew outside of hallway nods approached hand out. "My brother served," she said. "Thank you for that, for cleaning up my room after lab days too." A custodian from the night shift, still in his own green shirt, slipped through the cluster of parents. "You should have told me you were famous," he said, eyes bright. "I am not," Jack replied. "Too late," the man said. "They already think it." Mrs. Caldwell came back in a quieter moment and pressed a card into his hand. "In case you ever need anything," she said. "Not that I can balance the scales, but I would like to try." He nodded, pocketed the card, and shuffled it mentally into the growing pile of things he would have to make sense of later. Through it all, Lily and Emma stayed close. They turned down some photos. They agreed to others. When the principal asked for one of them, with their father, for the school website, they did not hesitate. They stood on the stage again, just the three of them. The photographer called out simple directions. Shoulders in, chin up, look at each other. Jack looked at his daughters instead of the camera. Lily grinned, eyes still slightly swollen from crying. Emma tried to look serious and failed. The shutter clicked. For once, he did not try to step out of frame. Eventually, the crowd thinned. Parents gathered their graduates, steering them toward curs or restaurants or backyard parties. Balloons bobbed above the parking lot. Confetti and programs lay scattered along the sideline. The stage crew began to break down the platform. Folding chairs clanged as they were stacked. Someone rolled up the school banner, the fabric whispering over itself. Jack found himself on the front steps of the main building as the light shifted toward late afternoon. The concrete was still warm under him as he sat. He rested his forearms on his knees, hands hanging loosely between them. The keys at his belt bumped against the step, the coin among them catching and releasing the light. Lily dropped down beside him, gown pooling around her. Emma took the other side, tucking her legs under her. They leaned into him in the casual, familiar way of people who had run out of words for a moment and did not need them. The field below them looked different now. Without the rows of chairs and the orderly crowd, it was just a stretch of grass with a few maintenance carts and trash bags. A stray cap lay abandoned near the 50-yard line. For a while, they sat in silence. The sun slid lower, painting long shadows across the yard. Lily broke it first. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Jack turned his head. "Regret what?" "Leaving," she said. "Ghost 17, the Marines, all of that." He thought for a long moment, eyes on the goalposts at the far end of the field. The metal gleamed dull in the fading light. "I regret some things," he said. "I regret not getting home in time. I regret missing your first words, your first steps. I regret every night I was not there when I should have been for one reason or another." He paused, searching. "I do not regret choosing you over a job," he said. "Even a job that many people think is more important." Emma picked at a chip in the concrete with her thumbnail. "The guy said you walked away from a machine," she said. "That is what he called it." Jack smiled at that, though it did not quite reach his eyes. "The machine is necessary," he said. "Somebody has to be in it. I just knew I could not stand in that place and also stand in this yard when you needed rides and science fair trifold boards and someone to tell you that failing one test was not the end of the world." Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. "We did not make it easy," she said. "You made it loud," he replied. "Loud is different." She snorted softly at that. Emma glanced down at his wrist. His sleeve had ridden up, exposing the tattoo fully. In the softer light, the lines of the bird and the number looked less harsh, more like something that had always belonged there. "Why did you not get it removed?" she asked. He lifted his arm, considering the faded ink. "I thought about it once," he said. "There was a clinic in town that did that stuff. Took one look at the prices and laughed." They both smiled. Then his face grew thoughtful. Truth is, he went on, I wanted to keep it. Not because of the unit, because it reminds me who I used to fight for. Other soldiers, Emma said. He nodded. The guy next to me, he said. The ones who needed someone to pull them out of a bad spot. He lowered his arm and touched the keys at his hip, the coin among them. Now it reminds me of you, he said. It is the same fight, just a different battlefield. Bad dreams, hard days, people underestimating you, all that. Lily watched his hand move. The jingle of metal was familiar. Today the sound had a different weight. When you were talking in there, she said, about not wanting us to feel like we took something away from you, I kept thinking about all the times I rolled my eyes when you came home smelling like cleaner and tired. I feel stupid. Teenagers roll their eyes, Jack said. It is in the manual. Right after borrowing the car without enough gas and forgetting laundry in the washer until it smells weird. We did that too, Emma said. I noticed, he replied. A breeze picked up, lifting the loose ends of their hair, carrying the distant sound of a lawnmower from a neighboring block. Below, a janitor from the day crew wrestled a trash bag into a barrel at the edge of the field. He looked up, saw Jack, and raised a hand. Jack lifted his own in acknowledgement. The other man smiled and went back to work. Are you going to take the new job? Lily asked. The Marines one, Emma added. And the facilities director thing. That is a lot. Jack stretched his legs out, ankles crossing. I have to talk to some people, he said. Fill out paperwork. Fight with a few forms that will ask questions I do not feel like answering. It will not happen overnight. That is not what we asked, Emma said. He tilted his head, conceding the point. If I can do it without missing dinners, he said. If I can still drive you to the bus station or the airport when you leave for college, if I can still be home when you come back on breaks and decide at midnight you want grilled cheese, then maybe. We are not 5, Lily said. You do not have to be there every second. Maybe not, Jack said. I am not ready to test that theory. Emma smiled faintly. You will have to, at some point. I know, he said. I am just not in a rush. They sat again in quiet. The light faded from gold to a softer grayer shade. The school's brick walls shifted color with it, edges softening. Down by the fence, the banner from the morning had been unhooked from its posts and left draped over a storage cart. The words were upside down from where they sat, but the letters were still readable, if you knew what they said. No one left behind. Emma noticed it and nudged Lily, pointing. Do you think they meant that when they ordered it? Lily asked. I think somebody thought it sounded good on a banner, Emma said. Jack followed their gaze. His mouth twitched. It sounds better as a plan than as a slogan, he said. They did not argue. Eventually, the maintenance crew finished their work and headed toward the back of the building. The last of the cars pulled out of the lot. The field fell quiet except for the rustle of dry grass and the occasional chirp of a bird settling into the trees. Jack pushed himself to his feet with a soft sound. His knees protested, then complied. Come on, he said, before the mosquitoes remember we exist. Lily stood brushing off her gown. Emma rose more slowly, stretching her calves, the cords around her neck shifting. They walked side by side down the steps. Jack set a slower pace than usual. There was no need to rush, no shift waiting, no mop leaning accusingly in a corner. As they cut across the empty parking lot, a couple of teachers heading to their cars lifted hands in farewell. Congratulations again, one called, to all 3 of you. Jack dipped his head. The girls waved. Out on the street, the neighborhood was beginning its evening routine. Porch lights flicked on. A dog barked from behind a fence. Somewhere a radio played a country song about roads and home and time. Lily carried one of the bouquets he had brought to the field. Some of the petals were bruised edges browned by the heat and the crush of the crowd. She did not seem to mind. Emma had tucked the other bouquet's flowers into her bag stems wrapped in damp paper towels from the school bathroom. Halfway down the block, Chloe pulled up alongside them, in her Civic window rolled down. There you are, she said. I was afraid the government had whisked you away. Not today, Jack said. Chloe leaned out, eyes flicking to the keys at his belt. The coin glinted between them. You looked very cool up there, she said. Intense, like a movie trailer. Someone forgot to tell my face, he replied. She laughed. Party at my place later, she told the girls. If you are allowed. Lily glanced at Jack. He shrugged. You just graduated, he said. You earned 2 hours of terrible music and too much soda. Sweet, Chloe said. I will pick you up at 7. She drove off, music rising for a moment, then fading as she turned the corner. They walked the last stretch to their house in a comfortable silence. On the porch, the cracked concrete angel watched them arrive. The front door stuck in the frame the same way it always did. Jack shouldered it open and held it as the girls went inside. The living room looked exactly as they had left it. Couch, old television, a few cups on the table. The note from the morning still sat where he had left it. The little doodle of 2 stick figures in caps and gowns felt almost like it belonged to a different day. Lily picked it up and studied it. "You really did not know how today was going to go," she said. "I rarely do," Jack said. Emma set her bag down and pulled the photograph from the front pocket. She hesitated for a second, then walked to the small shelf near the television where family pictures lived. There was a space between 2 frames just wide enough. She propped the photo there. The younger Jack, in uniform, dust on his face, looked out from between a picture of the toddler Lily with cake on her cheeks and a shot of Emma at age 8 holding up a science fair ribbon. Lily watched her do it. "You sure?" she asked. Emma nodded. "It belongs with the rest," she said. Jack saw it and stopped. His first instinct was to reach out and move the photo somewhere less obvious. His hand hovered in the air for a second, then fell back to his side. "All right," he said. "We can try that." He moved to the kitchen and filled a pot with water. Habit. Dinner would not make itself. The faucet sputtered, then steadied. The sound of the stove lighting was a soft, familiar click. From the living room, Lily's voice floated in. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "If people treat you different now," she said, "if they suddenly act like you matter more because of what you did, before we reserve the right to roll our eyes and remind them you have been the same person this whole time." He smiled at the stove. "Deal," he said. Emma added, "And if you start acting too important, we reserve the right to make you take out the trash." "That was always part of the arrangement," he replied. Later after dinner, after Chloe's car had taken the girls away in a blur of laughter and music, Jack stepped out onto the porch alone. The sky above the street held the last light of day. A pale strip of orange clung to the horizon. The first stars began to pierce the darker blue above it. He leaned against the railing, feeling the rough wood under his palms. The keys at his hip chimed when he shifted. The weight of the coin among them felt new but not unwelcome. He looked down at his wrist. In the dimness, the tattoo was a shadow on his skin. He thought of desert nights so cold they burned his lungs, of classrooms that smelled of dry erase markers, of the tiny cry of his daughter's first, recorded in his memory, and all the cries that had followed. He thought of the banner on the fence and the way the letters had looked upside down. No one left behind. He had not left his team that day in Helmand. He had not left his daughters in the years since. Somewhere between those two truths, his life had unfolded in linoleum hallways and on dusty roads. The porch light flickered once and steadied. He made a mental note to replace the bulb before it burned out completely. Keys jingling softly, coin gleaming in the porch light, tattoo hidden and not hidden under his sleeve, he turned and went back inside. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.